Hello, and welcome to this Cygwin tutorial on making things easier in Cygwin. My name is Michael, and this is my first Cygwin tutorial, hopefully in a series of many. And in this particular one, I'm going to share with you various things that you can do to set up your Cygwin environment to make it easier to use. About me, I've used the shell for a number of years now, but I've only really been working with Cygwin for about the past 2 years. I've found many tips and tricks over the internet, and here I'm sharing with you a whole bunch of things that I think is incredibly useful. So let's get started and talk about the first item here, opening a shell from Windows Explorer. From Windows Explorer with the bash prompt here. So let me lay out a scenario. You have a whole bunch of files that you want to work with, but they are nested deep inside a directory structure, and you have to always type cd / whatever and finally get to your location before you can actually get any work done. Well, have a look at this. Let's say here I have this folder, demo folder for Cygwin intro. I right click and I say bash prompt here, and there we go. There it is. So if I enter into that there and go back into here, you can see if I do an alias, there's that file. So how do you get this? Because this is great, right? The answer to that question is a package called chere. Probably you haven't already installed this package unless you knew about it or someone told you about it. So to get it, all you have to do is open up the setup program that you had used initially just to install Cygwin. Of course, you have to accept it. Go through all the prompts to get to the point where you can pick your package. By the way, about picking the mirrors, I have no idea how to pick a good mirror. I've chosen a bunch, and then I try to remember which one was the fastest. Anyway, so once you get to this point here, you can go into the search field and type chere, and then I think it's probably any one of these. For example, utils, and you can see I already have it here because the icon and the status here shows keep. But if you didn't have it, then you would just click here until it shows a version number like that, and then you would go next until it starts installing for you. I've already got it, so I won't go through that process. Once it's installed, the next thing you have to do is actually run a command. This command in particular in an administrator enabled terminal. So I'll show you what I mean. So if I can just exit out of these so I can see my icon. Actually, there it is right there. So when you have a Cygwin terminal icon, you right click on it, and then you right click from there, and then you say run as administrator and allow it. And once you have it open, you can go ahead and type chere -i-t mintty-f, press enter, and it'll do whatever it's doing, and after that you will have it in your Windows Explorer. You might have to restart Windows Explorer or something before it's there, but then you will have it. So from that point on, you can right click on a folder, then you can say bash prompt here. Sometimes you can even get to it from here, although not always. I'm not sure why that is. And that's that. It's magical, and you can just close this afterwards. Now, about the different commands I'm showing you, if I'm ever showing you the actual commands to type in, you don't have to try to write them down from the video because I will have them. They're listed inside the video description, right? Okay. Now you've seen that. Now, next thing about actually changing the terminal settings so that your terminal is easier to work with. So, for example, I have my terminal open right now. Do my ls-l. It's a decent size, but I mean, for the purposes of showing the video, showing this on YouTube, I'd want to make it bigger. So I can hold on to Control and then use my mouse wheel to just go up or go down in terms of font size. And that's an easy thing to do right off the bat if you just want to temporarily increase the font size, and that's all you need. But if you want something more, like for example, let's say you don't like the size that the Cygwin terminal opens up in. Let me just close that and start it again. You can see I think this is the default size. It's quite tiny. I usually expand it out afterwards, and so what I'm going to show you is how you can go and change that permanently. So what you do is you right click on the title bar and go to Options, and from there you can go to Window, and here you can set a size for the columns and rows, or just click the current size and it'll take whatever is in use right now. And if you want to keep these settings, then you just click the Save button, and this is what you're going to get. This is the size you'll get every time you start a new terminal. For example, I'm going to exit now and click it, open it up again, and there you see it opens up, a new one opens up with the exact same size I had before. And if we go back in, you can see there's other things, like if you wanted the font size to be different, then you can just go into here and adjust it, and these settings will stay too. If you made some changes and you just want to go back to the defaults, there is a way to do it. Yeah, I mean, as I recall, what it does is it creates a file somewhere here. There it is. I think this is the file that it creates, .mintyrc. So if you were to just remove that, and I'm going to try that right now. So I'm going to remove it, close this, and start it again. Yeah, and then, so if you really screwed things up and you just want to go back to the defaults, then just remove that file and you'll be back to where you started. One thing I should point out again, so yeah, if you make changes here and you click apply, then it'll apply just to that current window. But if you make changes and you want to keep them, click save, and then you'll have it until you change them again. All right, so next thing to show you is sharing the Windows clipboard. So Cygwin already has some built-in capabilities, some good ones for sharing using the Windows clipboard. So for example, most obvious is selecting and pasting text with the mouse. So you can see here, I'm selecting this. If I were to copy this and I want to paste it into my terminal, which, let me increase the size of it so it's easier to see. Take that go. If I just press on the middle mouse button, it'll paste right in there. But I've got, and I probably should have quoted that, so let me quote that. There we go. Another option, if you don't want to use the mouse, you can hold down on Shift and press the Insert key, and same deal. Now, what if you want to go the other way around? What if you want to take text from the terminal and put it into a regular Windows program? Well, selecting with the mouse is all you need to do. So if I say, hi there, and I select this, as soon as I've selected it, it's already inside the Windows clipboard. So if you can see, if I go over here and just go to paste, there it is. Simple as that. Another thing is the special file /dev/clipboard. It basically contains whatever, I suppose, whatever text is in the Windows clipboard right now. So if we just cat that board, there, hi there. Right? Now, something I'd like to show you is a function that I have in my bash startup file, my .bashrc file. It's called cdc, and what it does is it makes use of the fact that we have this /dev/clipboard, and I use it as another way of moving around the file system. So let me show you as an example. Let me go over here, I'll go back to my home directory. I'm going to copy this, go back in here, and I type cdc, and now I am in the folder that I just copied the path for. So if you, for whatever reason, if you don't like the bash prompt here option, or let's say you already have, a terminal open with some history in there, and you don't want to open a new one just to get to a folder, well, that's what you can do. You just copy here, go back in, and then type cdc or whatever you call your function, and you will be in that folder. So how do you do that? What is the secret sauce? I'll show you. So it is, let me expand this out a little more so it's easier to read. It's basically just that. Actually, that's all there is to it. But I created a function. I added some extra tests to make sure I don't create any errors or anything if it's not actually populated. So this is the function. If you paste this into your .bashrc file, then you'll have it going forward. And again, I'll share the code in the video description. So really, right, this is just right. CD and then dev clipboard, but with some bonus fun in it. So that's the command. You build that however you want. All right, what's next? Let's talk about going the other way. Right, you're in your terminal. You've been working on some files, and now you want to maybe open up a Windows Explorer to start fiddling with it on the Windows with the Windows interface. I'll just close this. Actually, I didn't have to do that. So I have an alias which I called winx, which I picked off somewhere else. I can't remember where, but I'll share the reference if I can find it. And what it does is it just opens up Windows Explorer in the folder that your current working directory. Okay, there's my folder. That's it. So again, how do you do that? Well, actually there it is, right there. This alias is all you need to do that, and it's fantastic. So in my day-to-day Cygwin use, cdc or bash prompt here, winx, I use these a lot, and I think once you add this or something like this to your own profile, I think you're going to find it a time saver, real time saver. All right, anyway, moving on. Something that I learned recently is this command called cygstart. It's built into Cygwin, standard Cygwin tool, and it lets you open a file based off of the file name extension. It'll open it with whatever Windows default program is assigned. So let's go back to that folder I was in before. No, that's not it. Okay, hold on. Give me a sec. I got a crappy keyboard. Okay. So here I have a text file. Let me type it up. Let's do it. So 2 lines of code, 2 lines of character data. So the command, as I said, is cygstart. So you just type cygstart and then the name of the file, press enter, and you can see there it opens up in Notepad, because Notepad on my computer is still the default text viewer editor. But this leads us to the next topic, because as you can see there, hello sailor and a smile on a single line as opposed to the 2 lines that it should be. And of course this is because it's a Unix file and Notepad doesn't recognize that and displays it like that. So some other tools that you're probably familiar with is DOS to Unix and Unix to DOS. And how do you get that? Actually, I'm not sure if they might be default programs. a default package in the Cygwin basic install. Maybe not. If it isn't, then DOS to Unix is the name of the package that you'll need to install, again using the Cygwin installer setup program, and then you will have that. So you will be able to do your conversions. So for example, Unix to DOS created. Okay, all right. Conversion's done, so let me just repeat the previous command. Aha, and there we go. Proper CRLF for Notepad. Okay, and what else to talk about? Anyway, so those are pretty much the things I wanted to show you. A couple other things I want to point out in this first video. Bash is coming to Windows 10, I hear. That just made the news last week, and my understanding is what it means is that the Bash shell and all the standard tools like awk and sed and grep and all that great stuff will be available right out of the box, something like that. I don't have Windows 10. I'm not sure when I'll pick that up, but when it does come out, then that's going to be interesting times, very fun times. What are we going to do with Cygwin? Keep Cygwin? I don't know. The other thing I want to talk about really quickly is I'm not actually sure which is better, .bashrc or .profile for storing your configurations. I've read these two links, and seems to me .bashrc is the way to go, at least for working with Cygwin. But then from the actual Cygwin website, I think they said to prefer profile. Anyway, for how I use it, .bashrc is what works, and that's what I'll stick to until I find out different that profile's better. Anyway, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this. I do have a number of topics already that I can think of that I would like to demonstrate. But until then, have fun with Cygwin. Bye.